Hi everybody, it's Tina from Professionals here. I wanted to have a bit of a chat with you today about something that's been on our mind here in our office this week, and that's insurance policies. I guess when you look around Australia at the moment, there's been quite a lot of natural disasters and things going on, and that puts insurance at the top of people's minds. I think that in an area like Lithgow, we can sometimes get a little bit complacent because we're not in the path of those types of natural disasters, and it can make people who have properties in areas like Lithgow just a little bit complacent. So I wanted to talk to you today about making sure that you have a look at your policies and what sorts of things you should be looking at with regard to your policies as well. I've just got a few notes for myself up here along the top of my computer so I remember what to tell you all. So we've had a couple of incidents happen in Lithgow here in our office with regard to insurance over the last little while, and I would say it's been a very steep learning curve for us because it's not the type of thing that we actually do very often, and so we've learnt quite a lot through that process, and as we learn more and more things, it's starting to make our office know how to run those types of issues a little bit better and the types of things we should be doing. I'll give you some examples of some situations that we've had happen here, and just to give you an idea of the length of time that sometimes these things can take as well. So recently, in the last 18 months, I had a phone call from a tenant, a very panicked tenant. A tree had fallen on an adjacent property onto her house, and it literally went through the house, right through the middle. The tenant was missed by the tree by around about 1.5 meters, and she was sitting at the breakfast bar eating her breakfast, and a tree was literally in her kitchen. It was a pretty shocking incident, and it was in the middle of winter, of course, which we all know here in Lithgow is a pretty cold time. So when that incident happened, we went out there, we took all the photos that we needed to do, we reported it to the landlord's insurance company and so on. The thing is that often at the very first instance, you don't actually know everything that's going to be affected by the problem that you're seeing. You know, we're sort of seeing a giant hole in a roof and a tree in a lounge room, and everybody's sort of, a little bit freaked out by that sort of stuff. But the things that became issues later on were the fact that the tree had damaged a lot more than what we could see, and there were rafters in the roof, and it made the property very unsafe. And there was no electricity because it had taken out power lines, it had taken out all of the lighting, and it actually popped all of the electrical lighting out of the ceiling. All of it was hanging by their wires because the force of the tree had actually forced the fittings into the living area of the property. So that was the first one. In that instance, the tenant was really great. She was a really understanding person. She knew that it wasn't anybody's fault, and she was prepared to live around that problem. That was until that problem took around about 8 months for the insurance company to finish, and so it got to a point there where we had to do something. We had to move that tenant on, and the situation became a little bit untenable. The second situation, again, we had excellent tenants in that property. In the second situation, the tenants had been out chopping wood. Again, it was in the middle of winter. When they came home, they rang me and said, "Tina, there's water pouring out of our power points in the lounge room." And knowing that property quite well, I knew that the power points were sitting at around about hip height. And I was like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And as it turns out, there had been a burst pipe in the ceiling of the property. The wall cavities had filled up. The water in that property had been forced into all of the walls, and it had come to the point where it was running out of the power points in the property. So once again, we had an issue where in this particular instance, we had flooding. We also had electrical problems and so on. And in that instance as well, those tenants were very, very understanding. They had actually just had a baby only very, very close to that time. In fact, I think it wasn't even quite 7 days, and they'd had a baby, and one of the tenants was able to move out and live with her mum for a little while. The other stayed in the property. They were hoping that things would go quite well and that they would be able to stay there. As it turns out, once again, that situation became quite untenable, and it took about 8 months for the insurance company. In fact, that one happened in July last year, and it still isn't ready to go. That property is not ready for a tenant to move back into yet. Okay, the third incident that we had happened only just this week. It happened on Monday, and we had some tenants ring us and say, once again, we're ankle deep in water in our property, and we don't know what's happened. As it turns out, these tenants were living in a flat, and the upstairs flat above them had a burst water hot water service. No one was home in either of the properties, either upstairs or downstairs, and so the water continued to run until such time as the tenants in both places came home. Now, when the tenants realised what was going on, they've sent us video. We've spoken to our landlord. We've gotten the insurance things sort of started and everything, and so we've begun the process. And we're still very, very early days in that property. But all of these things have started to make our office take a different view on the way that we deal with these things. And rather than, even though we've got great tenants, actually in all of those situations, the tenants have been really exceptionally understanding. The office we've made an office policy now that when a situation like this arises, we are going to give the tenants what's called a frustrated termination agreement, which means that the property has become wholly or partially unlivable and that the tenant needs to vacate the premises. So that's now our office policy with regard to these types of large insurance issues, and certainly where we can't predict the types of things that are going to happen. In this one that's happening just this week, we've gone from thinking that we just had carpet to a situation where we've got a roof involved, we've got rafters involved, we've got someone's, one tenant's ceiling and the people above, we've got their flooring, we've got paint, we've got mould issues now, we have a wardrobe that's been affected. It's something that is, it starts to take on a life of its own, I'll be honest. So when this landlord called me this week and we spoke about what was going on and everything that was happening, she said to me, I actually feel a bit sick because I can't remember making my last insurance payment. Thankfully, our office had actually organised this particular landlord's insurance on her behalf, and we had paid it here at the office for her. And so we had a copy of the policy, we had a copy of the people that we needed to contact, we knew that the payments were completely up to date, and she had exactly the right type of coverage of what she needed. So I think that's something really important to keep in mind, is that it would be a great idea for you to send us in a copy of your insurance policies so that we can have them here on file for you, and you haven't got to go digging around looking for them when it comes to that time of year, or when something happens, we've got it here on file for you. So what are the things that you should be considering and looking at when you're purchasing your insurance? The first thing that you should be looking at is making sure that you have an idea of what your excess will be. It's really important because sometimes they class different things as different parts of the policy, and therefore you can end up with more than one excess depending on what the situation is and what has actually happened to the property. So the first thing you should be looking at is, what sort of excess am I going to be looking to pay at my property? You need to make sure that you have a building insurance policy, a contents insurance policy, and a landlord protection insurance policy. It's really important that you have all three of those, because some things are covered under different situations, and if you don't have all three of those types of policies, you may find that in certain situations that you're not covered. So they're the three types of policies that I'm recommending today that you make sure that you know that you have, and that you've had a look at those, you've had a look to see what sort of excess you have on them, and that you've thought about getting a copy of those policies through to us here at the office. The other thing to make sure that you know that you have is that you are covered for loss of rent, because in this situation, often, and certainly now that our office has made this policy, that the tenants will be given a frustrated agreement so that work can be done immediately and at the discretion of the insurance companies, and we're not having to organise access and things like that. It means that your property will be untenanted, and therefore you need to make sure that you're covered in those instances for loss of rent. So you need to make sure, and in most places I would say to you that you probably need to be looking that you have a policy that's covering you for a 12-month period, because we're heading sort of to 8 months on a lot of these, and it's a long time to go without rent, and certainly I don't think your bank is going to look kindly upon you if you say, well, I haven't got a tenant, so therefore I'm not able to pay my my mortgage either. So, keep those things in mind, guys. If you would like to chat to me specifically about your situation and about what you need to do, please just give me a call at the office. My number here is 63525125, and hopefully I'll hear from some of you and we'll get to have a bit of a chat about what you need. We do have a lot of policies available that you can look at from here in the office, so if you would like us to send you a copy of a policy that you can have a look at and maybe some to compare with, we have a number of them here. Professionals themselves have just come out with a new landlord protection policy, and I think the policy looks really, quite good. So if you'd like to have a look at that policy and maybe some others so that you can do some comparisons, please just let me know. Once again, our number is 63525125, and if you'd like to email me, it's tina.case@professionals.com.au. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for your time.